Welcome to the Why Aren't You Famous podcast with Andrew Grimm and myself, Ellen Cherry, where in 24 enlightening episodes we explore a question we've gotten asked at our shows during the course of over 2 decades of performing. Why aren't you famous? So, Andrew Grimm, why aren't you famous?
I'm going to have to get back to you on that. I'm not really sure. I've been asking why aren't you famous?
I guess that's what we're going to explore. But I guess maybe we should also talk about, is that the goal? Are we trying to, at the end of these 24 episodes, find a clear path to fame?
Well, there's no doubt that this is a marketing ploy, right?
Right.
I mean, we're both savvy, demographic filled,
polished, working artists and musicians, constantly connected to social media with our fingers on the pulse of things that are hip, sleek,
our fingers in the eye of anything that's important. Yeah. No. Well, and this is our first podcast.
Yay! It's the beginning.
It is the beginning. It's all either downhill or uphill from here. Or in June Star's parlance, it's our plateau.
I'm hoping to plateau for at least another. Let's see. I started the first album came out in 1997, so at least for the next 20 years, I'd like to continue plateauing.
Right on.
Right?
Yeah.
It's comfortable. It's comfortable to plateau. Maybe I've already answered the question.
Right.
That's why I'm not famous, because I'm standing on a plateau and I feel like
you've settled.
I've settled. I'm content.
I've settled for vanilla.
I've squished my ambitions down.
Yeah. The water doesn't have to be ice cold and it doesn't have to be boiling hot. It just has to be lukewarm.
So, in this podcast, we're going to be asking ourselves 24 questions. So let's just dive in. What is today's question?
Today, since it's the first podcast, we should define what we're seeing as being fame. When it's being presented to us, what does that actually mean? The word fame. So. And we've produced every podcast we'll be listening to 2 segments that Ellen Cherry produces independently, one for herself, and I produce one for myself. And you're just going to have to trust us on this, that we don't listen to these until the day before or the day of the podcast, so we can have fresh, interesting conversation.
It's like gotcha podcasting.
Right, gotcha casting.
Gotcha casting.
Cool, got casting. But people are going to think that's Game of Thrones podcasting.
Way to reference something that's really famous and popular,
and
to try to get us off this plateau.
Right. And every June Star song is somehow there's always some sort of Game of Thrones hint or kind of detail that's embedded within the songs. And so if you buy all the records, if you subscribe, I'm just telling you right now, I'm getting closer to the mic. If you subscribe.
Because it's such an intimate experience when you're a June Star supporter and subscriber.
Let me tell you, it feels intimate. It should be intimate.
I'm watching you get pretty intimate with that microphone.
I am having a love affair with this pea popper right now. Okay, this is getting dirty. So the first essay that you're going to hear is produced by Ellen Cherry. And there is a little bit of a friendly, non-friendly rivalry going on between us about who's going to produce the better essay, and I must say that her essay is fantastic, so I hope you enjoy it.
Thank you.
All right, here we go.
In the journal Nature, I read an article with the title, "A Giant Planet Undergoing Extreme Ultraviolet Irradiation by Its Hot Massive Star Host." In summary, astronomers have called this planet an Icarus, named Kelt 9b after the star it orbits in the Cygnus constellation 650 light-years away, because it flies so close to its star that its surface glows with heat. Stars are categorized by a letter system from hottest and biggest to smallest and reddest. Our sun is towards the smaller end of that spectrum. So, planetarily speaking, this is good news, because smaller stars last longer before dying. I think that this is always how I have thought of myself as a performer, as a musician, and an artistic and creative person. I could be one of those smaller stars who lasted a long time, had a full and varied career before fading out and leaving a trail of sparkly dust melodies and lyrics about my own life ringing through the cosmos. And this is coming from someone who had formative years in the 1980s. There were challenges, both personal and societal, to my achieving this kind of lasting effect, but it seemed possible. I think that's because humanity had not fully reached what I consider our current situation, the age of peak ridiculousness. Or maybe it's better to call it the age of constant static. I mentioned the time frame when I grew up because in 1982 there was a really popular TV show called Fame. This was a time when it was only possible to watch an episodic show when it was broadcast, weekly, and I was a fan. I watched every episode. I knew the words and the dance steps to the opening credits by heart. I could quote Debbie Allen, "You want fame? Well, fame costs, and right here is where you start paying, with sweat." Those kids were in New York, and I was watching from my orbit in a suburb in Texas thinking, okay, if I want that, I'm going to have to work for it, daily. I'm going to have to sweat it out. Fame is a test. Only the deserving will pass and get to fly so close to the sun that they shine. 3 decades have passed since the end of that TV show. Few of the truly talented stars on it had any lasting fame, although some found something that I consider better. Steady work. I suppose I've been an astronomer myself, observing the stars that have floated into my view over my lifetime, marveling at their differing brightnesses. In these observations, the concept of fame has changed in my mind. What I see as being famous now seems to have a much different price tag. It doesn't take sweat or hard work. It just takes the willingness to burn hard and bright, flailing through the atmosphere. Less like a lasting star and more like a crashing meteor that is noticed, marveled at briefly, and forgotten, as we all turn our eyes to the next falling star. For my own life, I know now that I don't want to be dazzled. It feels like a trick, and a mean one at that. And I don't want to fall through the atmosphere and burn out quickly. I want to keep myself, and anyone else who wants to listen and observe me, warm, with a lasting heat that glows. So, what did you think?
Well, it's I really like that idea of, it's the idea of burning, or like how we're presented with this idea of what fame is.
Right.
Looking at that the Fame television show, which I think is, I saw the same show. I never really watched it religiously, except for the later episodes where they had the punk from Britain come in, and there was like the big controversy between him and his old mates, and they want to do all this punk rock, but he writes this song, After Dark. And he does this little like synth thing on it or whatever, and the difference between the punk rock reality of things, and then there's the produced nature of
Packaged.
commercial.
Yeah, exactly.
The package
Yeah.
deal. So talking about fame, I hadn't even thought about that show until I heard your essay, and I was like, oh right, whatever happened to those guys other than Leroy just died. Like what? I guess that was like 5 years ago.
Well, yeah. So I was thinking about that, and I looked them up. And the most interesting thing was that, and honestly now, because I wrote this essay a while ago, I don't remember his name, but there was one actor who had what I refer to as steady work. But then the rest of them did not become these massive, huge, Academy Award winning packaged products. But some of them continued to be dancers and have steady work as dancers. And I thought that was revelatory to me, because as a child, to see that, my definition of fame was, this is something that you work hard, you develop your talents, and then you get discovered. Or, you're walking down the street, or you're just not even walking down the street, that you just continue to work. And there's a ladder that you're climbing up towards fame. And then you are going to discover what all the benefits of fame are, which we'll probably discuss later, what we feel are the benefits of fame.
when we ourselves experience it.
Yeah, exactly. I can't wait till that happy day. But then to realize 30 years later that what I'm as an adult now, looking back at my innocent view of it, is that it's the fame that I've seen from, not especially, but sometimes in the music world, people are achieving fame because of stuff that I consider spectacular failing.
Right.
And not that failure isn't part of creation, and also that failure isn't one of the most beautiful teaching moments that you could have as a creative person. Failure is built into the system of a rich and varied, producing career. But just to see people, there's the celebration of the flailing and the idea that, I don't know, it seems to have changed for me.
Yeah. I definitely can, because you're in the mix. You're part of the deal.
Yeah.
And then also, the irony of the famed television show was that it was a television show.
Yeah.
That was widely broadcast, and it was a movie first.
Yep.
And so, there's fame. Well, the object lesson of that is, what does it get you? And apparently not a whole lot.
Yeah.
At the end of the day. So that's pretty cool. We're gonna switch over to my essay.
Yay.
And take a little listen to that. It's a little bit longer, but here we go.
Yay.
We're gonna find out exactly how good it is.
It's gonna be great.
Sometimes after a show, people will approach me and say, "Good show," or "Man, you're depressing." And sometimes, "Why aren't you famous?" It's meant as a compliment, no doubt. But it does get me thinking, yeah, why aren't I famous? Then again, I'm not sure their definition of fame is the same as mine. When I was younger, being famous was all about the movies and television, money and power. To be a movie star or a rock star, all I knew was the image attached to fame was a poorly behaved and overly indulged jerk, bloated from an excess of everything. Those whom I consider famous, from a personal vantage, are voices of humanity who have earned recognition from those who investigate their work. Their fame rests on the richness of their words, the intensity of their intelligence, the visceral visuals, and the immortality of the message. They are renowned, known for great work, life-changing novel ideas that have informed and challenged our perceptions of who we were, who we are, and who we could be. We normally view fame through the artificially generated lenses crafted by people in an industry that is only serving its own financial master. And there was a time when fame was earned or awarded based on a person's actions or character. And in context, it's not fame, but history, legend, and myth. It had nothing to do with their weight loss attempts, their workout regimen, or how many units they moved. Many famous writers and artists were rarely recognized in their own time. But compare that to now, where rejection is unacceptable and our access to material is instantaneous. Before the advent of YouTube, Spotify, and on-demand programming, we had to wait for the release of these works. And after the release, there was time to digest, interpret, and appreciate. That adds to fame, or from my perspective, worthiness. In those terms, the weight of the past can be carefully considered with hindsight. But in modern times, there is no room for reflection. Only the present seems to matter for our American culture. Merit of fame seems to be more about internet traffic rather than the message that's being trafficked on the internet. Does anyone really care about the YouTube sensation Rebecca Black in the Friday video? And what that allows our culture to do is listen or watch for a moment while checking our Facebook and then shrug off whatever has been presented to us. If that is the case, then I would certainly not be interested in fame as our culture defines it. The trappings of fame are intermingled with commercial success, image conformity, and corporate branding. And as far as I'm concerned, in comparison, a non-profit always has soul, because that focus isn't the money and public acknowledgement of importance, but the good show or the work produced.
All right, Andrew Grimm, fame defined. I took some notes.
Uh-oh. You took notes?
Because this was the first time I'd heard your essay, so
Oh, okay.
I wanted to. I think I really loved the idea of that no one can be rejected.
Yeah.
Because that was one of the things that I felt like I was noticing when I was my early exposure to fame, and even watching the record industry as I grew up through it in the 80s and 90s, is that there were gatekeepers, and you got a record deal, and then you came to the surface to those plateaus that, well, I don't want to call them plateaus because I don't know their experience, but like, yeah, how did I hear about REM,
Right.
a band from Athens, Georgia, in Plano, Texas, because they had a record label that distributed them and did radio promotion for them. And so they achieved a level of fame that helped push their very important connecting voice out into the world. And now we live in a world where people just don't, it is the whatever syndrome. Like, you can click on something and it gets a view, and it, even if you're not watching the whole thing, it's still that vote still counts for it. So nothing's getting rejected.
Right. Yeah. And I don't want to like make it like the snowflake type of argument that people have, like everyone gets a trophy, so blah blah blah. But there is this, there's this kind of idea that there is no gatekeeper, so everything is out there and everything is good. And you talk to younger folks about what they listen to, and they say, "Oh, I listen to everything. I like everything." What? I don't. Oh, okay. I suppose.
What do you think that is? Is that a fear of like being judged if you have an opinion?
Right. Or feeling like you don't want to say that you judge anybody. That idea, like when you talk to people who say something like horrifyingly racist or something, and they're like, no, I don't see color. I was like, okay.
I'm not a racist, but
however,
insert racist statement.
Right.
Yeah. And so maybe that's a little bit more of a pinpoint of what I'm starting to think, that like the idea that without a competitive edge, that's what is producing the two of us or not producing, but driving us to get a little bit better at both of our craft over our 15-year friendship now, that we push each other, we listen to each other's stuff, we comment on it, not cruelly, but we definitely work to like, I want to impress you. I want you to listen to the work that I produce because I respect your opinion and like it, and also ask questions in a way that a fan wouldn't, maybe because they may not be as well versed in the production of music, but just to say, well, like, why did you make these choices, or can you push that lyric a little bit further? And the idea that there's this lack of rejection,
right?
Like this acceptance of everything, and that for what end? To be cool.
Right. Well, and when I was talking about Rebecca Black and the Friday video, I watched that once when it came out, whenever that was, like 2006, I think, or I don't even know when that came out, but I remember watching it. And
I'll have to check my diary because it was a really important day. Red letter day.
It was a red letter day. You were like, maybe me too. Maybe I can be on there.
I'm going to spend 24 hours watching this video over and over again.
Maybe we should launch our own service called MeTube instead of YouTube, And well, but it's this idea that, her parents, the backstory is that her parents paid for this professional video and recording and all this other stuff. And then, she can't really sing, or at least at that point she couldn't. Maybe she can sing now. Who knows? But there's this idea that, and it's a double-edged sword. It's very, you want to be supportive of people. I mean, yeah, okay, you want to do this, that's really great. But then there's that cringe-worthy type of thing where you're like, I don't know if I would put that on, that's worldwide, that's forever,
Yeah.
And then the idea that's okay.
Yeah.
That somehow we equate that with some sort of success, and then she's going to an award show, or she's making money off of that, which I guess is fine because a sucker is born every minute, but still, I don't know, it seems kind of cheap to me.
Well, if you're on the NACA circuit, which is the National Association of College Administrators, I think, and you go, there's a period of time, I feel like, in every songwriter's life, working songwriter's life, where they go through like, should I play the colleges?
Mm-hmm.
And for a white female singer-songwriter, it's hard to get that work because there's a lot of white female singer-songwriters on college campuses already when I was pursuing that in the mid-aughts. And so you don't get booked because they're like, we already have like 5 locally grown versions of that.
Right.
And so to distinguish yourself from that, but it was difficult. But then to see, I don't know Rebecca Black's work apparently as well as you do, but to see people
work is a very that's an intense
term.
word to use for her.
A liberal description.
Yes.
I don't know it, so I can't speak to it. But to see somebody like that getting $10,000 and $15,000 bookings from colleges just
Sure.
to simply appear because of YouTube fame is incredibly disheartening. Sure. And the time that you waste feeling sorry for yourself in
Right.
your house for maybe 2 to 5 years,
Right.
could be better spent on, I don't know.
I didn't know Rebecca Black had that big of an impact on you. Like
I'm just
2 to
joking.
3 years.
I'm talking about other people.
Right, of course. Yeah. So, is that like so when you were trying to do the NACA thing when you said I'm Ellen Cherry and then like we already have Helen Raspberry coming in next
Right.
week and
Dang it.
Dang you, Helen Raspberry. You're the worst.
Patricia Mango? I don't know.
Patricia Mango. I'm digging those names.
Right?
So
I think the thing that
Patty Mango.
the thing that we both referenced in both of our essays are that our personal perceptions and definitions of fame changed.
Yes.
We had early definitions that we understood that we thought were going to hold fast as we entered these careers.
Which were both results of mass media.
Right? And American popular culture in
Right.
the 80s. And then to be in 2017 and to look at what fame seems to be today as an adult and as a working artist and musician, I don't know. It was interesting that it was present in both of our essays to me.
Well, maybe the idea is that fame, or the idea of fame, or even the ideas of success, or all these things that we talk about, all these terms that we use, they evolve with normal people. I hope, with maturity. As you grow older, if you think about the 80s and you're 12 years old and you're watching Fame, right? And you're going from 5th grade to 6th grade, and you have the hormone thing and puberty stuff starts happening, and then and the world is so amplified and magnified and in your face, and it's all like, this is your last day on earth and this is the biggest thing ever, and does anybody like me, and blah blah blah. And the reason I never taught middle school is because those children are ravenous demons that will gnaw at everything true and good in the world. And had bad experiences teaching, bad experiences going through middle school, and bad experiences teaching middle school. Never again. But that idea is like, as you get older and you start to understand that the world is not this focused laser beam on you, but it's a much larger view of light, and as the world gets a lot bigger and you start seeing different things, you start hearing about different bands, or you hear about different types of movies or books or poems or all those other things or whatever, you start thinking to yourself, well, wait a second.
Maybe I should be trying to seek out things that aren't necessarily famous.
Just because it's on the radio, played ad nauseum, doesn't mean it's good.
So that to me is like the double-edged sword, or whatever double edges. Sword seems so like death-oriented.
Double sharpened pencil.
Of the internet, because it serves exactly that purpose. Like, we can seek out these things that aren't necessarily famous but are rich and interesting. But the way that I feel like it sort of has gotten, in a really brief time, perverted by marketing is that really capitalist-focused smart people figured out the way to monetize it in the same way that television
Not
was.
only do they monetize it, but check it out, going full circle, there's a gatekeeper.
Yeah.
Google is a gatekeeper. Facebook
YouTube,
is a gatekeeper, because they can fashion what you see first, second, third, fourth, and fifth.
Yep.
And so therefore, when Google forms its record company or whatever, or YouTube has its record company and all this other stuff, they can prioritize how you see content. And they could bury other content if they really wanted to. And now that we live in a world where regulations are a thing of the past, they can do whatever they want, I suppose. I mean, but also, you're right about the double-edged thing, because you and I are I guess we could say self-published. I don't feel ashamed of that, because who needs a label? And MCA, if you're listening.
I'm waiting for your call. I'm waiting for your call.
I'm still here. info@junestar.com. But like we publish so much stuff online, and even this podcast.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to go on iTunes. It's going to go on Spotify. It's going to go on all these other services and platforms out there. So I don't know. I'm getting away from the.
It's okay. No, I feel that we have started this, and it's good. We've begun the conversation, and the key is not to answer the question, Andrew Grimm, why aren't you famous, in one podcast? It's to explore
done and done
the idea. And I think this is the first step in that we have defined that fame has changed. And I personally feel that I wasn't willing to adapt, or wasn't capable to adapt to the way that fame has changed, even 10 years ago, in my opinion, to push me off a platform that I'm on.
Right.
And I think part of it is of some of the reasons that we're going to explore in future podcasts of why that is.
Sure. Yeah. The idea of, I think like fame and worthiness, people who are famous, I think the initial work is always probably, well, I don't know. I can't even say that because I heard the Chainsmokers once. I was like, these guys are terrible. Or Florida Georgia Line, like those guys are terrible. I mean, they're terrible songs. I guess they can sing. If you take autotune off, I'd be interested to hear what it sounds like. But
you just mentioned two groups that I have never heard of.
You've never heard of Florida Georgia Line? Oh,
don't judge.
I'm judging them. I'm not judging you. I'm proud that you haven't heard Florida Georgia Line.
You could fill the internet with what I don't know.
Huh? That's an interesting. Let me think about that for a second. That's a lot. That's a lot, girl. But you know a lot about military history.
I know some.
Well, that was your major in college.
Let's not. Why are we going there?
Well, because we're also supposed to be we're doing a really good job of staying on focus, but we're also supposed to be somewhat entertaining. and other. This is where we dance for our.
And also to hopefully. What was I gonna say? If people have bothered to listen this long into it, like it's been 25 minutes. Who's still with us?
Are you guys still out there?
Thank you.
Yeah. So, well, okay. So fame defined. We've talked about fame, and there will be comment sections on our. I think we should do comments and stuff like that on our website. We haven't really filled that stuff out, but by the time this airs, it'll all be taken care of. And we'll let you know where you can find all that stuff. I think it's going to be WAYF.org.
Okay.
I think that's what we should really go for. But if you want to join in the conversation, I think we'll create a Facebook group and some other stuff too, and have it be a private group that you have to join. But still, like, we're interested in interacting because this should be a two-way type of process.
And I think not to inflate the conversation, but even when you were talking a few minutes ago about worthiness and the gatekeepers, the current gatekeepers, we have politics that are now driven by fame.
Sure.
And so that is much to the detriment, I think, of humanity.
Yeah.
And so I feel like, and if you hear that sound, it's Andrew Grimm pouring coffee.
Yeah, I'm not
urinating near the microphone.
I'm not wearing a lavalier or doing an a la Naked Gun extended urination gag yet.
I'm so excited that urination made it into our first podcast.
Like I said, there's nowhere to go but up.
Mom and Dad are going to be so proud.
They are.
So the next segment of the podcast,
yes,
after we each debut our own individual definitions and personal essays, is that we are going to highlight something that we think should be famous. Mm-hmm. And the caveat is that we have no idea, maybe if it already is famous to some people and they're like, I can't believe you didn't know that. Or, because that's how you always say that when you're like judging somebody, like, I can't believe it.
How could you have missed that? And whatever.
It's like totally huge on
like,
this.
Shaw. Like.
So what we're going to do is present something for you, the listener, that we think is worthy of your time, mm-hmm, and fun to listen to and interesting, and possibly an associate of ours or a friend of ours or just something that we happen upon that we think is good. And we think that you should listen to.
It's worthy.
It's worthy, right?
It's worthy of the fame that it deserves.
So speaking of, why don't you talk about this track we're going to play?
Okay, so we're going to play a track by a two-piece band called Saddle Centaur. They're from Baltimore, and it's two-piece, two ladies playing some pretty aggressive punk rocky type of stuff.
What? They can do that while also having vaginas?
Well, you know what? You're glad I said urination. I'm glad you said vagina.
Oh, it's going to be in every episode.
We didn't. That wasn't in the production notes. Okay.
Well.
All right. Well, here we go. I work at the Wind Up Space, and I run sound, and I know these women from other bands as well, and the guitarist for Saddle Centaur plays in Santa Labrada, I believe. I think I could be wrong. I am wrong. That's another woman named.
Do they all look the same to you? Do all women look the same to you?
All women. They all look like my mother.
Oh my God. Anyway, back to Saddle Centaur.
Right. So, but the track we're gonna hear is from their EP called Six Pack, and the song is called Tampon Tea.
So why did you pick this song?
I picked this song because when I hear a lot of music, if something stands out to me that I would have never thought to do in my life ever, I'm like, wow, that's like, okay, cool. I'm of course, I don't know many guys who are writing songs about tampons, and I'll leave that up to women to write about those. That's fine. But it was like, I heard it and I found it hysterical at the same time as I found it rocking. And so then I looked it up on Bandcamp and I listened to it online, and it was, because you can't hear all the words exactly articulated on stage when there's like raging amplifiers going on. But what was really cool about it is just that it's what I approached them later and told them that it's like the dirty deeds done dirt cheap via Baltimore.
Nice.
And that's exactly what it's all about. So enjoy Tampon Tea. We'll come back and talk a little bit about the song after I'm done belching. But after we listen to the song, we'll have a really quick discussion about it and see what we really like about it.
All right, cool.
Okay. All right. Here we go.
Brewing up some
right. So that was Saddle of Centaur with Tampon Tea, a Baltimore-based duo rocking it out, super compressed, beautiful guitars, great vocals, a breakdown section.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know why I'm describing the song like you just heard it, but the last line is, what is it? Brewing it up for my enemies, or this is for my enemies.
Yeah, this is for my enemies.
Man,
that's awesome.
I wish I had the ovaries to end a song like that.
Wow. That's the first time I've ever heard anybody say, man, I would that person's got some ovaries on her.
They do, right?
Wow.
I love the little breakdown in the middle where the guy is like sipping the tea. He's like, "What? What is this exactly?" Right?
And he's like, "Poo," and then he says some cuss words.
So yes, we will probably have to put a warning that this does have some explicit lyrics in it.
We'll put the enticing red explicit rectangle that says explicit on it.
Even the word rectangle sounds explicit.
Ooh, yes.
So, my personal belief of why that song should be famous is that it's humorous, it's funny, it's informative because they talk about a woman's cycle being 30 days. They mention fallopian tube. So,
they call it the fallopian maze.
Fallopian maze. So somebody might be curious to learn more about female anatomy, which I think is really important. There's a spirit of fun about it. There's also like one of the most unifying, or not most unifying, but I think personally like a unifying emotion, which is like jealousy, wanting revenge without really hurting anybody. And
well, I don't know, man.
I thought it was so great.
The implication is pretty nasty.
Yeah, but it's also like, it's interesting because to have a song, I appreciate that our podcast, our podcast is celebrating something, that is sort of considered taboo, talking about menstruation.
And using it as a weapon. Using it as an agent of vengeance.
Yes, it's very subversive. I think that's why I like it. Maybe it's subversiveness.
Well, and right now, I think collectively, and this is no slight on Saddle of Centaur, because I love those women. The drummer Kathy has like the world's most amazing, wonderful smile and stage presence as well. She's really entertaining to watch. But the right now collectively, I think we've had the longest discussion about tampon tea than anybody else ever.
Yeah.
So it's a historic podcast in many, many ways, but also like the fact that I haven't done research on it yet, but I'll go ahead and take a look to see if tampon tea is actually something that people do, because I'm curious. Because then if
okay, that's all you, because I'm not interested in doing that at all.
Well,
don't share that information with me.
Weren't you talking about how you're the curiosity of America?
Yeah, no, I'm glad.
So let's be curious, because if not, then that means that they came up with it, and that's hysterical.
I know.
It's like, how can I get back? You know what? I know exactly how to get back an unwanted guest. Your girlfriend's new old ex.
Your new girlfriend's ex, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I agree.
Uh-huh.
And that's why I think, we were asking, the purpose of this podcast was for us to personally explore the question of why aren't you famous? But that's something that we're like, why isn't that famous?
Yeah.
Why isn't that song famous?
That should be knocking whatever Taylor Swift's, new song off of the top of the charts.
What a different world we would live in.
I dare say better world.
I think so too, because like there's a sense of humor in it, and you can tell that, and just by you referencing her joy in performing it, that there's a lightheartedness and also just fun that when I said age of peak ridiculousness in my essay, that it's more actually the age of static. There's so much static that it feels like it can wear you down. And this song, to me, we were listening to it and I was just sitting here laughing the whole time and enjoying it so much. And it's pure joy.
Yeah.
That's why I think it should be famous.
Sure.
Pure
Absolutely.
joy.
Yeah, it's worthy.
It's worthy.
Worthy. Tampon tea is worthy. Earl T. Tampon. That's with the Earl T. Grey. Anyhow. So the final segment of each podcast is we're talking about, because we are actually a little bit more savvy in our marketing than we let on. we are booking a tour in March of 2018. And the tour looks like it's going to be about a 3-week tour. And we're fast approaching this week. We have to do this. We have to apply to South by Southwest.
Yep.
So we're both going to apply to South by Southwest, and we're both looking forward to getting our rejection emails.
Rejected.
Not you. You're not good enough.
I was rejected like 5 or 6 years in a row from that festival. So I'm looking forward to adding it, getting back into the swing of things with South by Southwest and continuing my streak of rejections.
Yeah, I got rejected twice, and then they started sending me emails like, "Hey, get the early bird registration," and I told them to cram it. I've sent several emails, like angry emails, to people. Like Guitar Center keeps sending me emails, like Andy Greenfield of Guitar Center keeps sending me emails like, "Hey Andrew, how can we get your business back?" And I reply to him every single time. I will never set foot in one of your stores ever again to buy anything. I might go in there to look at something because I want to see what it is, but I will never give you another dime of my money. Please take me off your list.
Okay, you're veering into another podcast.
Sorry, I'm getting angry. I'm so mad right
So
now. So
back to our tour.
Back to our tour. We're gonna put the tour routing online and all of this other stuff. But the first step of this is to kind of talk about where we're gonna go first, and the first logical place for us to go is gonna be Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh, PA.
Mm-hmm. The last time we played Pittsburgh, we were going out to Chicago, and we played at Needs Hotel.
Needs Hotel.
And which is an old man bar with the drop ceiling and the 5-cent beer.
Good gig.
And there are all these salty old Pittsburgh guys with these beards and stuff, and Ellen Cherry proceeded to play for 45 minutes about feminine feelings and getting in touch with what does it mean to be a woman? And it went really well.
It
went really well. Everyone shared a hug.
I pulled out their inner feminists.
You did.
Extracted them.
You extracted them for your own girl power.
My own feminist tea. I pulled out their inner feminist to create my own feminist tea in Pittsburgh, PA.
And I think Needs Hotel was like the hot fish sandwich or something like that. Was like the big deal. That was the special. It's like
they're famous for that.
The famous fish.
Yeah.
Okay, we caught at the creek right outside the.
So when this airs, we are going to be searching for a gig in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Yes.
Or surrounding areas.
Now the funny thing is, and this is true, I was just on Facebook, and one of my contacts in Pittsburgh, he's kind of like this is going to sound stupid, but I'm the Andrew Grimm of Baltimore, but I'm also the Brian Quaid of Baltimore. I'm the Don Dupree of Baltimore. I'm the Matt Monta of Baltimore, which means that I have lots of connections and can get lots of shows for people and stuff like that. And I have lots of people calling me and emailing me all the time asking if I can set up a show. So Brian McQuaid is in Pittsburgh, and he just posted on Facebook, you would think after 12 years I would, I would have much more success or whatever. I mean, he was kind of lamenting the same exact thing that we're kind of exploring at this point. And I responded to him. I said, because he was talking about how he's such a nobody in Pittsburgh or whatever. And I said, oh, well, as Emily Dickinson said, oh, you're a nobody too? Shh, don't tell anyone. It's it's okay. We can all be nobodies. So we'll be contacting him about the gig in Pittsburgh, I think.
Hi, Brian.
Brian, if you're listening, you're not a nobody.
Emily doesn't think so.
No, she's dead.
Repeat that quote because that's a good thing to end on, I think.
Oh, you're a nobody too? Shh, don't tell anyone.
Don't tell anyone.
Yeah, I think it's anyone. It might be don't tell anybody.
We'll look it up.
Yeah, we'll have to look it up. I should know this stuff.
It's okay.
Anyhow, so where can we find Ellen Cherry stuff? You
can find Ellen Cherry stuff, all things Ellen Cherry, at www.ellencherry.com.
All right.
What about you, Grim?
You can find my stuff at junestar.com, my horribly outdated website. Yeah. But also, if you're listening and you're really into this type of stuff, you can go to both ellencherry.bandcamp.com or junestar.bandcamp.com, and you could subscribe to a monthly service where you get a whole bunch of exclusive material and interesting stuff. We don't sell each other's. Well, you could get some Ellen Cherry songs off of the June Star subscription because from our big tour, our cyber tour we
cool.
did.
Yeah,
that's still up there for me.
Nice.
That's
please, on my Bandcamp page too.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So there you have it. You can get all that stuff there, and thanks for listening. And
thank you for listening for this long.
Yeah, I know. It's been forever.
To our little conversation. It's been almost an hour. And
an hour.
I feel like, I don't know how you feel, Grim, but I feel like the first one went pretty well.
I think it did too.
Yeah.
I think
we're on our way off this plateau.
You know what? Fame, here we come. Woohoo!
So in the next episode, we will be discovering or exploring another question, which I don't know off the top of my head what the next one is going to be.
Oh, it's ethos and egos.
Oh, that's right. Ego versus ethos.
Yes.
Which I still have not wrapped my head around.
I thought I told you.
You have several times, but I'm going to work on it. So the next one will be ego versus ethos as we continue to explore the question of why, Andrew Grimm, why aren't you famous?
No, thank you, Ellen Jerry. And maybe we'll figure out why you aren't famous.
I don't know. All right, see you next time.
All right, take care, guys. Bye-bye.